So, I just finished rereading Kaguya-Sama, Love is War, and it's finally over, to be honest. So let's talk about it. So, it's been a few weeks now since Kaguya-Sama had its final chapter released, and I think it's the best time to actually finally talk about it. Being the super fan that I am of this series, I really adore this series. For context, if you don't know much about me, or if you do know stuff about me, like you follow me off TikTok, you may know I'm a pretty massive fan of Kaguya-Sama. I always hype this series out. I constantly talk about it, and on this channel a couple months ago I released a video as to why I think Kaguya-Sama is the perfect love story. In short, I think it's the anime equivalent of Romeo and Juliet. In the future it will probably go down as a cult classic, cult romance anime staple series. It's just really good. It's funny, comedic, it has humor, good characters, everything you want in the series. And there's hardly any negatives in this series, at least when it comes to my opinion. I don't think there's a lot of negatives. There's a lot of positives, some downsides, but overall, it's really good. And the final chapter of Kaguya-Sama was honestly bittersweet. If you haven't read this series from beginning to end, you won't really understand the entire thing. For me, originally, I wanted to talk about the final chapter when it was released, but I feel like that didn't do any justice to this series. So I spent a couple days just rereading the entire series, all the way from chapter 1 to the final chapter, which was 280 or 282. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I spent a couple days is reading all 26 volumes of Kaguya-Sama. It would have taken me much faster if I had days off, but I go to school, I go to work, so I spent a couple days just reading parts of the story. And looking back at it, I want to say it's a pretty good series. Like, you can see the comedic moments build up and then keep building up. It's one of those series that never really gets tiring. It's always entertaining. There's always something to laugh at. It's always interesting to see some of the characters develop. And towards the end, the final, I would have to say, 20 chapters of Kaguya-Sama, it went back in its roots. I gotta admit, the one thing that kind of irked me about this series was that one part when she was forced to marry, let me see if I can remember, Shijo, that one guy who was obsessed with her. She was forced to marry him for like some family business. I wasn't too keen on that, to be honest. I found it kind of weird. Like, I know they set up Shirogane trying to propose to Kaguya. Eventually they would pull that off, but I just found it weird when she was abducted to be forced marriage, and then her friends came to her rescue. It wasn't really my favorite thing. I feel like that's kind of been done to death, in my opinion. I know it was done in Nisekoi, so like that arc reminded me heavily of one of these arcs in Nisekoi where they're trying to rescue Sugumi, but that's a video for a different day. But it reminded me heavily of that one arc, and it was okay. I wasn't really the biggest fan of it, but towards the last 20 or so chapters, like I mentioned, it went back to its roots. After Kaguya and Shirogane make up, they confess to one another. They say, I really want to be with you. I never want to let you go. Let's always be together. I feel like it went back to its roots. Like, you saw Kaguya and Shirogane, despite being separated like thousands of miles away, one was in California, one was in Japan, it felt like they never really disappeared from one another. And it was just interesting to see each of the characters just have their conclusions send off. Like, they had a nice send off. You saw what happened with Maki and her relationship with Nagisa. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but she was in love with one of this character's like boyfriend, and she was kind of jealous. They got that resolved because she ended up being pregnant. It was a really funny scene seeing that. You also got to see Chika's conclusion, farewell. You got to see Miko Ino's conclusion, where her and Ishigami don't necessarily fall in love. They start Love is War part 2, but like their own edition. It was pretty interesting to see that happening. You got to see the conclusion of Hayasaka. So basically we got to see the conclusion of Hayasaka, but in her conclusion we actually get to see a time jump. So a couple years into the future, Chika is basically like the prime minister or something. Ishigami is just basically a chill guy, to be honest. He still hasn't settled down with Miko, which is kind of disappointing. I really do want to see that, but I don't know if we will. And then you see Kaguya finally chasing her dreams down as a famous photographer. Then you see Shirogane as like the head of a president of a company, and Hayasaka's just there living her life. She finally quit being a maid, but she's still really chill with Kaguya, and it's just fun seeing them as grown-ups just interacting with each other back like they were when they were teens back in high school, young adults. It's pretty interesting to see how they've evolved. Like, this time jump was honestly bittersweet. I really wish we got to see more of this. It was just pretty fascinating. Like I said, some of the character conclusions or their arcs were pretty fun. Chika, her thing about falling in love, not really. She's still the goofball that she is. Kaguya and Shirogane, they have their happy ending. And the final chapter, some people said it was kind of boring, but to me it was bittersweet. Like, if you didn't reread the entire series, you won't really understand the final chapter, because the final chapter is basically like a conclusion, a farewell to us, the readers and the audience, saying it was good that you enjoyed watching us. It was good that you saw us laughing, smiling. We're happy that we made you smile. In a way, Shirogane going back into the building after not necessarily graduating, after he left early for Stanford, it was basically us, the audience, just being put in their footsteps. Like, oh, I don't want to say goodbye to these characters. Like, wow, I really don't want to say goodbye to these characters. All these my favorite characters, I'll never see them again. But Kaguya telling Shirogane, it's gonna be okay, you can come graduate with us. You said this bittersweet moment where the entire school is hyping up Miyuki and saying thank you for being our president, thank you for everything. And that final 2 pages where you see the entire gang all back together is just bittersweet. You see them all cheerful, like nothing has happened. This ending was just bittersweet. It may not be like a true ending like people wanted, but it was just bittersweet. I love seeing all these characters like evolve, each have their own conclusions, and it was just a good ending. It wasn't bad, it wasn't horrible. It was a good ending with a good conclusion, and it was fun. Well, I really want to thank the author for crafting such an amazing series. It's a series that to me has always helped me out. Whenever I felt down, I would pick up this series and just have a good laugh, have a good giggle. And I just want to thank you. I don't know if you'll ever watch this video, but thank you for crafting such an amazing series. And with that being said, I guess we can say farewell to Kaguya-Sama. That doesn't mean that the anime is over. It's far from over, and I can't wait for season 4 and the movie First Kiss Never Ends arc. The movie, I can't wait for that. If you're going to Anime NYC and you're gonna be watching it, let me know how it goes, because I'm really jealous. But that's all I have to say about the series. It's a fantastic series. Final chapters, amazing. The final chapter, bittersweet. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but yeah, that's all I have to say. And if you guys like this video, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, follow my TikToks, whatever. Let me know what you thought of this series. Was it your favorite? Was it your least favorite? Tell me why. And I'll catch you guys on my next video. Peace.